everyone, welcome to Hub and Spoke, a storytelling platform produced by the J. Hurt Hub for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at Davidson College. Through these conversations, we hope to inspire and connect the next generation of innovators and entrepreneurs leading lives of leadership and service. Welcome back, Brian.
Thanks.
It's great to see you again.
You too.
Thank you for joining us. I really want to focus today more about digging into, obviously, your role, but also the future of Summit and building community and what that really means. So we're going to start a little bit more basic. Okay. How you define being an entrepreneur or an innovator.
Yeah, I think being an entrepreneur, I like to identify challenges and opportunities that are in front of us and plan and build around them before we're confronted with them. I think that's my most important job as an innovator, is to say, we have a team of people tackling the problems of today, but what are our challenges going to be next week, next month, next year, and how do we build a company, build systems, and build products that let us skip over that hurdle.
Okay. And kind of relative to that, I'd love if we could go back to Davidson days or even before that.
Yep.
Where were the seeds planted for you insofar as thinking about a longer term vision or innovation in that particular way? Just kind of walk us through your journey.
Yeah, a couple quick, points. I was the youngest of four brothers growing up, and so I think immediately I wanted to find ways to differentiate myself from my older brothers, and so starting really in high school was like, okay, how do I not just become a carbon copy of what has been laid out in front of me? So that was like how do you think about identity differently? And then when I got to college, I was a center major at Davidson, and so that whole process is like, okay, how do you break from these cataloged majors that Davidson has built very thoughtfully to create something that Davidson doesn't offer, and why is that of value to you? And so really those two things. And then my first job out of college was as a sports journalist, and tapped a lot into being sort of a routinized person, but then I also found myself navigating toward like, well, we could do this better, we could do this better, we could do this better, and being at a lower point in a company. I worked for a place where that didn't resonate as much, and that was hard for me. I was like, okay, I feel like I need to be in a space where I can create and bring idea to action when I want to.
Continue on the path a little bit more, because we're going to tap back into this creativity and storytelling thread that you just mentioned. But okay, take us from being in sports writing to
the literal journey was I was a sports journalist for 4 years. It was what I wanted to do my entire life. Like as a child, I was like, I'm going to be a sports journalist, and I got the job right out of college. And that was, I was looking for Matt Spear, who's the Davidson soccer coach, because he was actually the one who was just here, and he's the one who introduced me to the person who hired me. So, and then I had a real sliding doors moment. After 4 years, I was a finalist to be a lead editor for a new ESPN project called Grantland, which was one of their, with Bill Simmons, who's one of their lead writers, and ESPN had given him his own project, and so I reached out to him out of the blue and was like, I think I should help you launch this. And that got me started with like, okay, I sort of want to do something different. And then I didn't get the job and turned down a columnist job with him. And then simultaneous, Tim, my brother, who was the primary owner of Summit at the time, wanted to grow Summit beyond this single store and felt like he needed a partner and someone who thought differently to do it. And so he said, would you come work at Summit? And so I came to Summit as an employee, and after a few months became a part owner, and then really worked alongside Tim and for Tim growing the business. And then after 5 years, I had grand ambitions on where I thought Summit could go, and I think Tim wanted to slow down a little bit from entrepreneurship, and so I bought the majority of the business and took over, and have been sort of adding to Summit ever since with depth and layers.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the depth and layers, because you have a number of different business lines, frankly, that you have. You've got the roasting business,
Yeah.
you have direct-to-consumer, grocery distribution in your cafes, franchising now, which we'll get into in a moment. You've got a 501c3 nonprofit foundation that you're going like, how do you keep all of these different trains running?
It's a great question. I think it's a carefully orchestrated amount of trains and what they all do. We've done more things, and we've sort of zoomed in from what we've done. We've cast some things aside that we're like, this doesn't make much sense in what we're trying to do. Right now, the businesses all support each other. So like we're expanding on cafes and building a brand. So we have our marketing that's like supporting our cafes, but also building our lifestyle brand. But that helps market our cafes. And then we have a roasting business, which allows us control of the supply chain, but also the storytelling aspect of that. And then franchising allows us to be more impactful in our local communities than we could be if we were a corporate chain that had stores in 5 different states. And so I think these things all work together right now.
Okay, let's talk about storytelling then. Something that's near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, I often call myself the chief storyteller of Summit.
Okay, so find your summit as the brand tagline. Obviously, you've written extensively about franchising and the protection of the brand and stories and all that. We talked to Andrew a little bit about that as well. How do you keep storytelling consistent? And frankly, too, as CEO writing blogs, do you have time to be writing all these blogs, interacting? It's an interesting thread.
It is. I'm a creative. I was a creative writing major at Davidson, and I like to think big ideas. And one of the things that I really hold close to my chest as the Summit CEO is branding and marketing. I directly oversee our marketing department. I'm involved on a day-to-day basis with the brand of Summit. So from our trade marketing to our social media interactions to new campaigns, I feel like that is what jazzes me up. Is like, how do you take this story and tell its sequel or tell it bigger or tell it differently? And that's really what it is to grow Summit. It's like you take a story that has a strong foundation, and how do you find the core fabric of why it matters and drop it into a different city or into a grocery store, and you have to tell a totally different story. And I think, to draw a parallel to Davidson, my senior thesis was I wrote a novella and then adapted it to a play and then directed the play. And so what I was trying to do was tell the same story, and I learned the lesson. I was like, I'm going to write this novella and then pretty easily adapt it to a play, and it's going to be the same story. And through that adaptation process, I learned that it's just a different medium and a different audience. It provides a platform for a totally different story. So I changed the narrator, I changed characters, and I think that really spawned this creative idea of like, you can tell the same story from the same foundation, and the lesson of like, I used to keep a Rolodex of note cards on characters or places so that I would get to know them, even if it never made the story or made the play. It was like, I know so much about this person, and I feel that way about Summit. And so I don't think there's anything more important for my job than to like make sure that we are curating the story. Part of expanding it into franchising is that we need to find the right people. Not everyone's going to be a master on how to run a Summit. And we could grow a lot faster if we weren't as intentional about who we are letting tell their version of the story. But similar to as Summit's grown up, I think the best stories are told from different points of view. I mean, if everything comes from my voice, it's missing a lot. It's missing a depth of character. It's missing a depth of perspective. And I am, a 36-year-old white male. It's like Summit means something very particular and very real to me, but Summit means something so much more to other people who work for Summit, other customers, other communities, and I think it's providing the framework and the platform for other people to help participate in that storytelling.
Yeah, I love that perspective. I think the other thing that I've seen in my work with startups and founders, obviously you're not the founder, you're the CEO and running the business, is this challenging separation between personal brand and professional brand, and saying like, yes, you are representing the brand anytime you engage, but how do you walk that line?
Like as an individual person?
As an individual person is like Brian Helfrich, the individual and the professional, but then also as the CEO and what Summit stands for. Sometimes those things are
and they are really linked. I'm not going to lie. I mean, those are pretty closely aligned. A lot of Summit's values are my values.
Right.
I think Summit, I let them play off each other. I think I've been able to build a really genuine business because it is genuinely from who I am, but I think I've also let Summit teach me back different perspectives on what have I learned as a business owner that's let me be a better father, a better person. I mean, there's one thing about being the type of person that I am that is really hard, is that I really have always cared about what other people think about me, which is like the cardinal sin of being a CEO. And so that's been a great hurdle to try to overcome, because I do still personally feel that, but I've been able to navigate that on a business level. Like, if I just make what I feel like is the right decision and treat people fairly, treat people well, but then, have an idea of what Summit stands for, what Summit's trying to be, and just continue going through that and recognize that sometimes people aren't going to line up with you, and sometimes you're going to make mistakes and hire the wrong people. And like, as the CEO, it's my job to serve a group of people. And this is a long way around this answer, but I think when you're trying to serve a group of people, you owe it to the best performers and everybody who bought into what you were selling them when you hired them to keep going where you told them you were going to go, or how you were going to operate. If you slow down or change directions for one or two people, then you're not being genuine to all of the people who are performing well. And I think, it's finding that balance. But getting over the idea of like, I might leave a room after a hard conversation and recognize that somebody might say like, man, Brian's a jerk, and like that's part of making hard decisions.
Yeah. Well, what did people get wrong about you then?
I think people probably assume that I'm really stressed. Like you mentioned earlier, like we have all these things and we're juggling all these things, and people look at you and you're like, gosh, you're so busy, are you okay? And I don't feel stressed. Like, I really like what I do. I feel like I'm pretty close to a flow state almost at all times in my work. And for me, the biggest hurdle I had to clear was getting rid of the idea of work-life balance. And for me, it's work-life integration. Like, as the CEO of a company that's growing, and functionally Summit operates like a startup, I can't turn it off. And so I think when I tried to turn it off, I was stressed when I was trying to separate things. And so coming to that realization on how to integrate them so that I can be on in multiple places. But to me, that's not stressful. Like, some people are like, oh, you're on vacation and you're taking a work conference call, and I'm like, yeah, but I'd rather, that to me feels better than coming back in 5 days and be like, what did I miss? And so I think the idea of like, people think that I stress or work too hard.
Yeah. Okay. I love this idea of work-life integration, because I too am like sick of the work-life balance thing, and it just doesn't really resonate with me anymore. You prioritize your time accordingly, and the things don't ever really turn off.
Yeah, and if I feel like I'm the same, if I bring my whole self to work, which is the other phrase, I've always wondered how people preach, bring your whole self to work, but also work-life balance. Because like, how do you do that? It's like, I feel like there's ebbs and flows. Your personal life, there's ebbs and flows to work, and I think you've got to be able to weave them together.
Yeah. I'm not sure what podcast I was listening to lately, but somebody talked about it as just like seasons of your life, that you're going to. And they're all interwoven and connected very wonderfully, but you're going to have sometimes when the leaves are falling off the trees, and other times when the sun is shining, and it's wonderful. But anyway, we could talk all day, but I will keep to some of the questions. Quickly, talk to me about the thing that you're most excited about with Summit.
I'm excited about what we can be that we haven't discovered yet. I am relentlessly curious, and in the discovery of what don't we know yet, which is exhausting sometimes to people who work for me, and I'm pretty transparent to people that we're interviewing. Like, I will never let you get comfortable. Like, I don't want you to be uncomfortable all the time, but like, I think comfort leads to complacency, and I refuse to let people go there. So like, sometimes I'll poke or ask a hard question just to like, make someone feel something other than comfort. And I think I have a good idea of what I want Summit to be, but I'm so open to how that's going to happen. And I think remaining curious and nimble is really important, especially in 2021. And the pandemic has shown us, like, if you have to be able to adjust on the fly and change what your focus is, and be able to like. And we built a team that way. So like, Andrew, who's in charge of franchising and finance, at the start of the pandemic, I was like, cool, you're going to go away for 3 weeks and figure out PPP loans because that was a time when no one knew who was going to get it and how to qualify and make sure you did it correctly. And so I was like, that is going to be your job for the next 3 weeks. Like, and I took Wes from the Outpost and was like, you're going to figure out how to run a drive-through. And I think that is the mentality of like, everyone needs to be on their toes and ready to go in whatever direction we need to go. So I think it's the excitement of like, gosh, I don't know what projects we're going to get into. And, you know, I may show up in the office and be like, here's this takeover idea I have. I think we should make this acquisition. I think we should try out this product. And, you know, I want a team of people, and I have a team of people now that are like, cool, I know how I can impact Brian's idea, and, you know, so.
Yeah, and to that end a little bit, sorry, I have an extra question, because you pushed on it. How do you make decisions, and how do you incorporate sort of others' ideas and playing devil's advocate and pushing the boundaries of your thinking versus kind of implementing, you know, a vision that you have?
It's a great question. I've learned when I need feedback and who to go to for specific parts of that feedback. So if I'm in an ideation phase, I know when to go to Andrew, I know when to go to Tim, I know when to go to my wife Tyler, I know when to go to Dora. And I am I don't look for consensus, I sort of build consensus, but also I feel pretty strongly and I have strong convictions, and so I think our team is also, and it's taken a long time to get there, but they sort of understand in my eyes and in my tone when I bring an idea, like, is this going to be something that we're doing? And so I think that is really important. I make decisions, and I like almost am my own internal consultant, and I know how to quickly do that. I know how to like throw my idea on paper, and then I learn by talking. So I'm not like I don't learn by writing, I don't learn by reading, I need to talk, and so I know who to talk to at what point. So I'm like, okay, if I need to like run this through a strategic lens, I'm going to sit down with Andrew. If I want to be in a real big ideation phase, I know to take it to Dora instead of somebody else. You know, because I also want to be careful about like, let's not be in the ideation phase and take it to somebody that's going to poke holes in it, because that's going to deflate my dream. It's like, and so but I've learned that about like, you know, and I'm fortunate as a CEO to have a team of people that can provide me that depth of conversation and analysis.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important, and the sort of collegial type of environment of knowing when to push back and when to be like, okay, we're just gonna go run it.
Yeah. I think one lesson that I always impart on our Davidson student employees is to ask questions and then ask better questions, because I think you learn from asking. And so asking for different perspectives or asking for, you know, consensus, whatever it may be. I think just like being inquisitive, and again, use the word curious. I think it's really important. I think when you were studying at Davidson, it's like, but why? But then why? And then I think that is like, and it's as a parent, it's sort of an annoying thing that my kids do, but I sort of appreciate it as well. My daughter's like, why is that the answer? And I'm like, good question. I don't want to answer it, but yeah,
you have to be selective about those instances and hear myself. Okay, so building off of that and to close out our conversations today, we are both in the community building space. The Hurt Hub, we talk about that. We can, live at the intersection of campus and community. Summit obviously has this very strong orientation around community building. One thing that I think is so important in community building is obviously trust, but also we were just talking about pushback and challenge. So how would you challenge our Davidson students who are listening today to think differently about their career paths or their choices?
I could get on a soapbox about this for a long time. I think I was on a panel at Davidson 8 years ago this November about non-traditional career paths. I think we talked about this once, and I think, it's funny to I'm the CEO of a business, but it was considered at the time like a non-traditional career, and I was like, why is that? And I think they were framing it in the context of like consulting, investment banking, going to med school, going to law school versus anything else. And I think that a career can happen in so many ways. Like if you think of the fastest growing industries and the most popular jobs right now, most of them didn't exist 10 years ago. And so I think to Davidson students, I would say find out what's really important to you and start from there. And so for some people it might be, I want financial stability, and that's okay, that's not wrong. For some people it might be, I want to be happy. Some it might be, I want a place where I can be creative. So really think about from your personal core, what do you want? And then also secondarily, just because you made a decision to major in something when you were 19, or just because you made a decision to take a job when you were 22, should not inform what you do when you're 25 or when you're 30. It doesn't need to. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you're never too old to change directions and restart, but you can always build on what you learned. It's not like you wasted, if you go to law school and decide you don't want to be a lawyer, like, you learned a ton of stuff in law school that can help you in whatever you decide to do next. So I think, like, you know, be nimble, be curious, and don't feel like you have to follow a specific path just because somebody in front of you who went to the same high school you did, went to Davidson, majored you did. It was like, people like you did these things. It's like, cool, that's good to know, but you don't have to.
Mm-hmm. I love that. For someone who's worked in like 6 industries,
right. Yeah.
or all around the country, yeah. I fully subscribe to that. So,
yeah, and in teaching coffee, people like, you know, Summit can be a career, and that's been one of the biggest hurdles we've had to get over. Now we have 14 Davidson alums in our staff, but like, there's a stigma around, like, so what are you going to do with your life? And it's like, well, maybe it's this.
Right.
Or it is for the time being.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much
for
taking the time,
Absolutely.
hanging out with us. All right, that's it for today with Brian.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you.